Hello everyone and welcome back to Market Empire. We discuss anything about stocks and investment on this channel. One of the most well-known figures in business and investing is Kevin O'Leary. He made a reputation for himself as co-host of the popular TV program Shark Tank, where he makes private investments in startup companies. He presents himself as a highly knowledgeable, no-nonsense investor who is able to cut through the clutter and spot gems in the rough. He has amassed a sizable following on social media, with roughly 1 million followers on Twitter and YouTube respectively. O'Leary's reputation, which was once excellent, has significantly suffered over the past few years as a result of a string of poor investments, immature behavior, and contradictory public remarks. Basically, O'Leary began purchasing Bitcoin in 2017, but he didn't start calling it a hoax until he appeared on CNBC in 2019. When the price began to rise in 2020, he finally announced his cryptocurrency holdings. In addition to disclosing his personal Bitcoin holdings, he also changed his investment strategy to concentrate primarily on cryptocurrencies. He updated his Twitter profile image to feature blue laser eyes, a trend among cryptocurrency fans. In an effort to appeal to younger audiences, he started to dress down for his television appearances by donning sweatpants and flip-flops. Everything about him, from his Shark Tank antics to the design of his Twitter page, has been meticulously chosen to project the impression of a reliable investor. By promoting his commercial endeavors on his social media channels and working as a paid brand ambassador, O'Leary has milked his public image for tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. However, over the past month, the reputation he had worked so hard to establish over the previous 10 years has been severely damaged, maybe beyond repair. FTX paid O'Leary $15 million to serve as the company's paid spokesperson. This is not particularly incriminating on its own because until SBF's House of Cards collapsed in November, very few people were able to see through his lies. It was soon obvious that the entire organization was a huge hoax once FTX declared bankruptcy, particularly after SBF embarked on his Compassion Tour, which revealed several glaring factual errors in his public interviews. At this point, O'Leary might have acknowledged his error, expressed regret, and pledged to do more research going forward, while also donating his $15 million influencer fee to the victims of the FTX. This might have preserved what little of his reputation was still intact. But rather than returning his $15 million, he continued to support SBF and even stated that he would consider working with him in the future. At the New York Times DL Book Summit a few weeks ago, SBF gave an interview. He vehemently denied in the interview that he had stolen user payments on purpose and attributed the $8 billion hole in FTX's balance sheet to lax internal accounting controls. Shortly after the interview, Bill Ackman, the billionaire hedge fund manager, tweeted that he agreed with SBF's justification. In his reply, Kevin O'Leary expressed his agreement with Ackman's evaluation. What does Kevin O'Leary believe happened to the money if he doesn't believe SBF stole it? Sam Bankman-Fried was also invited but wasn't able to attend due to his arrest the day before O'Leary gave testimony under oath at a U.S. Senate hearing on December 15. So let's hear from Mr. Wonderful.
With Sam Bankman-Fried over an extended period of time. Why do you believe FTX failed?
I have an opinion. I don't have the records. Here it is. Tell me the use of proceeds of the assets of your company. Where did you spend it? And then he told me about a transaction that occurred over the last 24 months, the repurchase of his shares from Binance, his competitor. I didn't know this at the time, but at some point, CZ or Binance, who runs Binance, purchased 20% ownership in Sam Bankman-Fried's firm for seed stock. And then, over time, and I asked him, what would compel you to spend $2 billion was the number he was giving me at that time. Later, in a subsequent conversation, about 24 hours later, he told me it could have been as much as $3 billion to buy back the shares from CZ. I asked him, what would compel you to do that? Apparently, according to Sam Bankman-Fried, CZ would not comply with the regulators' request in these different geographies, these different jurisdictions, to provide the data that would clear them for a license. He withheld it, according to Sam Bankman-Fried. The only option the management and Sam Bankman-Fried had was to buy him out at an extraordinary valuation of close to $32 billion, less apparently a 15% discount. That stripped the balance sheet of assets.
The first thing to take note of is how close Kevin O'Leary and Sam Bankman-Fried seem to be. Although O'Leary was able to contact SBF since he knew his phone number, there is another development that is much more intriguing. One of the initial investors in FTX was Binance, which paid $100 million for a 20 equity ownership position in the company in 2019. O'Leary claims that I was unaware of this when I invested in FTX or was being paid $15 million as a spokesperson. Whether or not this was his aim, O'Leary basically acknowledged that he had done very little research. Looking at a list of companies' investors should be one of the first steps you do when investing in a private company. This is a typical step in the due diligence process since you need to check for any potential conflicts of interest. If your biggest rival holds 20% of your stock, this raises serious concerns. It just takes around 5 seconds to learn about Binance's investment in FTX through a Google search because it was made public. It's hard to imagine O'Leary, who has been investing in private firms on Shark Tank for at least the last 10 years, could have been so inexperienced. O'Leary claims that there are a few additional intriguing details in this tape, including the fact that SBF used user money to repurchase shares from Binance. Whatever the reason, what O'Leary is describing is obviously illegal. Consider the scenario where JP Morgan needed to buy back stock but lacked the funds to do so, so they stole the cash from Chase savings accounts. Another intriguing aspect is that SBF had trouble keeping his figures straight. After telling O'Leary that the repurchase cost them $2 billion, he later changed that to $3 billion. Given the significance of this purported incident, it seems inconceivable that SBF would only be off by $1 billion. If O'Leary really does believe any of this, he might be the most credulous person ever. Whoever asked O'Leary why it went bankrupt should refer to the past week, when all of a sudden, CZ is requesting an additional $500 million on social media. He wants to execute a block trade of FTX's proprietary coin in exchange for converting it back to fiat. According to Kevin, why would you put that out there? You know it's going to push down the pressure. It's going to put down the value of that coin dramatically. That's exactly what happened. Following the sale of its equity holding in FTX, Binance still had around $500 million worth of FTT tokens. Binance declared their intention to liquidate their whole FTT holding at the beginning of November. O'Leary asserts that CZ requested an additional $500 million, but this is simply untrue. CZ tweeted on November 6, 2022 regarding Binance's desire to sell his whole ownership in FTX. However, they never requested $500 million from FTX. And even if they did, FTX would not be obligated to compensate them. Caroline Ellison, CEO of Alameda, proactively offered to purchase this position on the open market. It's improbable that they could have fulfilled this promise given the state of Alameda's balance sheet unless they stole even more money from FTX depositors. CZ declined Caroline Ellison's invitation.
In my view, my personal opinion, these two behemoths that own the unregulated market together and grew these incredible businesses in terms of growth were at war with each other. And one put the other out of business intentionally.
It's difficult to think of him as being useful as a paid spokesperson any longer. It's time to finish up this video, people. What do you think of Kevin O'Leary? Will he ever be able to repair his reputation? Let us know in the comments area below. As usual, thank you so much for watching. Market Empire signing out.